Welcome to the Galileo Capital August monthly update. It's been yet another interesting month in July, and I'm very glad to be joined by Katlego. Kat, it seems like we're forever talking about politics at the moment.
Yes, thank you for having me, Warren. It seems we knew coming to this year that it's going to be politically noisy, but I think never have we imagined that we'll see something like an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. We didn't even know that Joe Biden will drop out of the race for running for election. So interesting times indeed. Your thoughts on what's going on, Warren, and what that means for us?
I think in the US, uh, if you look at, I mean, we don't do any betting, so I hate quoting betting odds, but the people who bet and create odds on presidents, for example, are showing us that Donald Trump is probably a 66% probability of becoming president of the US and Kamala Harris a third. And at the time of recording, she still hasn't been officially nominated as the Democrats' candidate. So I do think it's likely that that's where she's going to end up at that, becoming the Democrat candidate and then going to contest with Trump. Uh, how investors will perceive that and how markets will react will be very interesting. I think we're in a position where there is so much uncertainty. What we certainly have learned from Trump in the past is that he's going to shake things up. He's going to derail best laid plans. Some of it will be very business friendly. Some of it will be mind boggling. And then international relations, I think, will be shaken up again. And what it means for the EU, what it means for the Ukraine, what it means for the conflict in Israel, all of those are up in the air. He is probably predictable in being unpredictable. So, Kat, I feel, certainly internationally, that we're in a space where a lot is happening, a lot is going to change. We still don't know who's going to run the French government, for example. Their coalition kind of arrangements have taken far longer than ours, and they're in theory a mature democracy. So I think there is a lot going on. And one thing we've learned from Warren Buffett a long time ago was don't kind of position your portfolios for an election outcome, because you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, agreed. I must agree with you there, Warren. And that's why we believe so much in diversification. But let's see how everything plays out. Just thinking back to Trump's previous presidency, one word that comes to mind is volatility, and volatility. So I think just to be cognizant of that fact and to remind clients that markets will be volatile, firstly because of the election, and then, just to remember that in the previous rule, Trump did come with volatility, but let's see what comes of it now if he does become president and what happens going forward. Locally, it does seem though that we've come through okay through our elections. It does seem that sentiment is positive. The ALSI hit another all-time high. Your thoughts on what has happened so far?
I think at a national level, it seems to me that the politicians are from the various parties that are in the, I want to call it the wildebeest, but in the government of national unity, are playing nicely. And certainly some of them have hit the ground running, and interestingly, how they're using their social media platforms to kind of promote what they're doing. And some of it's very entertaining. I think Gayton McKenzie is certainly using his platform as much as he can to promote himself and to postulate on as many things as he possibly can as quickly as possible. And equally, the DA ministers seem to be using social media as well. I think what we need to see is how kind of the words and thoughts get into action, and certainly that's what we're all aiming for. And so I think there is probably an element of calm and stability around this government of national unity at the moment at a national level. And I keep emphasizing that because the one outlier in this whole thing is Gauteng specifically. And I mean, none of us at Galileo pretend to be political analysts, but I think it's safe to say that what the ANC in Gauteng is doing relative to the ANC at a national level, it's kind of a fissure. There's definitely cracks in their own internal unity, and it's lots of kind of political commentators speculating that Paul Mashatile and then the Gauteng Premier and that sort of Gauteng ANC are very keen to align much more closely with the EFF. And we can kind of see that, rolling out in the municipal politics, and it's huge instability. So I think that's it is a kind of a litmus test for the ANC themselves, because they're not enforcing discipline as far as I can see, and equally that the DA are happy to kind of be in opposition and vote according to policy. So we see that now that the city of Joburg's budget was just passed just before recording, and the DA voted to pass the budget once they were satisfied with what was explained, and especially around funding lines. But they're not in that government, and they're certainly going to be in opposition. And I think that we need to see how that unfolds, because it might be the blueprint for how the DA will respond to the ANC at a national level if there is a crack in that government of national unity. So for now, I'm happy. I think that it's working better than expected at a national level. I'm really interested to see how municipal budgets and provincial budgets in Gauteng kind of carry on and maybe fall apart. And then equally, I think it's really worth watching by-election results at the moment, because especially in Natal, it's fascinating to notice how the MK are in a municipal level, whenever there's a municipal by-election, generally performing terribly, and the IFP is generally performing very well. And the IFP performs well at the cost of the ANC and the MK. So it might give us a sign of what's coming. I'm speaking a lot, Kat, but I also think there's quite a lot of speculation about Jacob Zuma's health, and that maybe he's not in good shape at all, and so one of the questions will be what happens if he's unable to really fully participate in political life. What happens to the MK party? We've seen lots of turmoil in their leadership, with leaders resigning and then being unresigned, and and the like. So I think that it's probably a case of lots of hope, and I think good hope now at a national level, and then watching what happens at a municipal level in Gauteng and in KZN, and then just how a party like the EFF responds to what's turning out to be a hiding at a national level that they really didn't do well. And they seem desperate now to find a new strategy and to find a new voice, and certainly we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I must say, I'm just glad that it's all over. Leading up to the elections, I was very nervous because nobody knew what will happen. But where we are at the moment, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable. And then, Warren, the sentiment around interest rates and inflation, that still seems to be topical. I know we started speaking about inflation and interest rates quite a while back now, but it's still with us. Looking at our Reserve Bank, they're still very cautious and decided to keep interest rates unchanged in July. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's important to know that it's extremely unlikely that our Reserve Bank cuts interest rates before the US cuts interest rates. So, and there's good logic behind that. Is if we cut first, the ability for us to offer local and foreign investors a better interest rate than Americans is still there, but that gap starts to narrow, and that could cause the rand to weaken, and that becomes inflationary all on its own. So our reserve banks have a history of following what goes on in the US. So I think their stance is very consistent, the Reserve Bank, and it's important to know our Reserve Bank is highly respected in financial markets in South Africa, and certainly globally. It's certainly a kind of a beacon of excellent management, and there's no criticism from our part in terms of what our Reserve Bank does and the way it implements policy. The country would benefit greatly from lower interest rates, but it needs to be done in a responsible way. But having said that, we need to then look at the US, and certainly we're starting to see signs of economic distress in the US with consumers under pressure. Certainly the costs, the cost rate of increase, so their inflation rates are coming down. And some of the individual Reserve Bank governors at a state level in the US are starting to kind of talk about interest rate cuts for the first time. So I think it's likely that we would see an interest rate cut in the States at some point, in this year. I mean, we're never going to make a prediction about that, because the only thing we guarantee there is that we'll be wrong. But it's a very good, safe kind of forecast that interest rates will come down through the rest of 2024 and certainly into 2025. And that's an economic tidal wave, because lower interest rates will follow lower inflation, and that means that consumers get a bit more breathing room, means that companies that have been borrowing get the ability to deal with debt a bit more easily than they have in the past, and that follows on in South Africa, and so I think that the economic outlook in SA is going to get better on an increasing basis, and maybe. Just to allied to that is, we're seeing fuel prices coming down. At the fuel pump, you and I are feeling it when we fill up our cars. That means that the food producers and the food sellers are feeling it as well. And then don't forget, over 100 days of no load shedding. All of those things are very positive, because in the past those were all headwinds facing our economy and facing our businesses. So we're in a position where we don't have a lot of tailwinds necessarily. There's not a lot going on that's very good economically for us just yet, but some of the big headwinds are gone, and so what we're left with are brilliant management teams in South Africa. This is the kind of evolution at work. If you're a CEO or a management team of a big business in South Africa, and you're still standing and your company is still standing, it means you are the fittest businesses and the fittest management teams around. And so anytime you're not getting headwinds, it means that these companies are able to produce a bit more money, generate a bit more profits, grow their own businesses a bit faster. All of those things become positive spiral for unemployment, for economic growth. So I think your very guarded sort of sense of positivity, Kat, I agree with, and I think there is over and above the politics, there are some fundamental economic reasons why we can all be a little bit more positive than we've been for quite some time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think after all is said and done, Warren, I think we've always been upfront with clients in saying we don't know what is going to happen, what the future looks like. We don't try to time markets or do predictions. That's why we invest clients in well-diversified portfolios that's built for uncertainty. And just to remember to stick to the strategy and stick to the plan as we move forward.
I think if sentiment continues to improve and it gets more and more positive at an accelerated rate, you and I could be recording one of these in the next 6 or 12 months, telling people not to get too optimistic and not to get too carried away. And I think that that's we in the past we've been saying don't get too pessimistic and don't get too despondent about the economy. And the antidote to all of those, both too much positivity or too much negativity is then a structured plan with an agreed kind of process of how you manage your money, so that you protect yourself from the emotional swings. We're all human beings in this thing, and when we win a World Cup in sport, we become overly optimistic and life is amazing, and then when we lose a rugby game, suddenly we're all despondent, and all of those are great emotions around the braai and the dinner table. They're terrible when you're making investment decisions. So having a structured plan and a process, I think, is your antidote to all of that. And I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think, we don't base our investments on predictions. We can talk about them. They're interesting, and they might help us make some decisions at the margin, but the big decisions are totally immune from forecasting, or should be so.
Agreed. In July, just to remind our investors and clients that the tax filing season opened. Initially, it was for those who were getting auto-assessed from the 1st to the 14th of July. And those who weren't auto-assessed now have the opportunity to file the tax return. That opened on the 15th of July. All tax certificates are available. Clients are more than welcome to contact us should they have any tax certificates outstanding. We'll be able to source them and send them to them again. As a reminder, the tax season for individuals closes on the 21st of October.
So importantly, there, be prompt. Don't leave it to the last second. That's always stressful. And if there are, every now and then we do pick up errors in these tax reports, and it doesn't give you much time to kind of correct those errors and deal with them if you're doing your tax reporting right at the end of the period. So please be prompt if you can. And certainly, it seems to me that I'd hate to tempt fate, but it seems to me that SARS is getting a little bit more efficient with processing of returns and even refunds if you're lucky enough to get one. But give yourself time to deal with anything untoward, and please don't leave it to the last second.
Agreed. It's always good to give yourself some time.
So, Kat, I think that's us, and thank you so much for coming on the call. I know you don't love doing these with kind of a lot of enthusiasm. So it was great to have you on the show, and let's see what August and September holds. And I think both you and I are generally cautious about life, but I think we're both as cautiously optimistic as we possibly can be.
Thanks, Warren. Thank you for having me.